Chapter 1. What Falls from the Book. The drive-in feels the same as it always did, and nothing like it at all. I tend to the county road, blue bonnets thick on both shoulders like they're showing off. Texas in April does that. Doesn't apologize for the color. I crack the window and let the warm air in, and tell myself this is just a trip. Mom needs help. I have a truck and 2 weeks of PTO, and nothing holding me in Austin anymore. That last part I don't say out loud. The house looks smaller than I remember. It always does. The porch sags a little more on the left side. The bougainvillea has gone feral, and the screen door is hanging at an angle that says nobody's fixed it yet. I sit in the truck for a minute longer than I need to. Then I go in. Mom is in the armchair by the window, lighter than the last time I saw her. The kind of light that worries you because it isn't thinness. It's something else. She smiles when she hears my boots on the hardwood. "You made good time," she says. Roads were clear. She doesn't get up and I don't make a fuss about it. We are that kind of women, my mother and I. We don't make fusses. I set my bag in my old room, which still smells like cedar and the lavender soap she puts in all the drawers, and I stand there for a moment with my hand on the doorframe. 32 years of me lived in this house. Most of them I spent trying to get out of it. The kitchen is the most her room. Cast iron skillet on the stove, dish towel folded over the oven handle, the old calendar from the feed store still up on the wall, even though it's 2 years behind. I start moving things around. Not reorganizing, just moving, the way you do when you need to feel useful and you're not sure how. The cookbook is on the top shelf. The old spiral-bound one she's had since before I was born. The cover soft from 30 years of flour and time. I reach for it, and it comes apart in my hands, the binding finally giving up, pages fanning loose. Something slides out, flutters onto the counter. A photograph. I pick it up and the world gets very quiet. My father, alive. Smiling that smile he had for cameras, the one that never quite reached his eyes. He's shaking hands with a man I would know anywhere, in any light, in any nightmare. Harlan Voss. The man who bought our debt and called it business. I make myself look at the rest of the frame. There are other people, men in the background I don't recognize. And there, just to the right, younger but unmistakable, is Cole. He is looking straight into the camera. Straight into me. My hands are steady when I turn the photograph over. They shouldn't be. In my father's handwriting, 2 words in blue ballpoint pen. He was there. I stand in the kitchen for a long time. I don't cry. That's not the thing that happens. What happens is a very specific kind of cold that starts in the chest and settles, and you breathe through it because there is nothing else to do. I put the photo in the front pocket of my jeans. The light outside is going orange. I look out the window over the sink and I see the county road, the way it curves past our fence and bends toward town. And there, going slow, is a white truck with the sheriff's star on the door. It passes our driveway, it slows. It doesn't stop. But the driver turns his head, just slightly, toward the house, and even from this distance I can read it. Awareness. Attention. Something. The truck keeps going. I turn back to the kitchen and look at the shelf where the cookbook used to hold itself together. I'm not leaving before I understand what that photo means. That is the only thought I have. Clean and final and utterly without doubt. I close the kitchen window and that's when I notice it. The barn at the far end of the neighboring property, the Callaway place that everyone in town says has been empty for 3 years, has a light on inside. A warm, low glow behind the old wood slats. I watch it for a moment. Then it goes out. Chapter 2. The Sheriff and What He Knows. The Wildflower County Sheriff's Office smells like burnt coffee and old paper, and whoever chose the waiting room chairs did it with a deep personal commitment to discomfort. I know this because I'm sitting in one. I came to update my vehicle registration. That's what I told myself on the drive over. That is technically also true. The registration is in a folder on the passenger seat, ready to hand over. But the real reason I drove 11 minutes into town is standing at the far end of the room, talking to a deputy, looking exactly like someone who never had to try to take up space. Wyatt Holt. He's bigger than I remember, which shouldn't surprise me because it never does. Something about seeing people in person after years of keeping them at the level of a name and a feeling. He's in full uniform, tan shirt, dark pants, badge catching the fluorescent light. His hat is on the rack by the door. He sees me before I'm ready for him to. He finishes what he's saying to the deputy, unhurried, and crosses the room. Harper. Wyatt. Neither of us extends a hand. The air between us is doing something complicated, and we both pretend not to notice. Registration, I say, and hand him the folder like that explains why I'm here. He takes it, looks at it, looks at me. I can have Deanna process this, he says. Okay. He doesn't call Deanna. He takes me back to his office instead, which is just as tidy and undecorated as I would have predicted. One desk, 2 chairs, a corkboard with printed forms pinned to it. No personal photos, except for one small frame on the far edge of the desk turned face down. I don't ask about it. We sit. How's your mom? He says. Smaller. He nods. He understands what that means. In a town this size, everyone knows who's getting smaller. We talk about the registration. Then we stop talking about the registration. I found something at the house, I say. His whole body changes. It doesn't move, which is exactly the change. He's very still in the way of a man who learned to be still on purpose. Found what kind of something? A photograph. I don't show it to him. Not yet. I watch his face and I say, my father, Harlan Voss, another man. Wyatt sets his pen down. Was there anyone else in the photograph? Why? Because, he says slowly, the Sloan case never felt close to me. The Sloan case. He said it like it was a file. It was our life. It happened fast, I say. Too fast, too clean. He leans back. But I had nothing, no witness willing to talk. No document that showed the original terms. I look at him for a long moment. He's not asking me to show him the photo. He's waiting for me to decide. What would you do if you had something? My job, he says. Simple, final. Before I can answer, the door opens without a knock, and Serena Voss walks in with a basket of something wrapped in cellophane and a smile that's been practiced in a mirror. Wyatt, I brought the donation for the department fundraiser. She sees me. The smile doesn't leave, but it changes in a way that a less experienced woman might have missed. Harper Sloan. She says my name like she's checking it off a list. I heard you were back. Word travels, I say. She sets the basket on the edge of Wyatt's desk, close to his hand. So nice that you could come take care of your mother. Her voice is warm tea and ice underneath. I stand up. I pick up my folder. It was good to see you, Wyatt. He follows me to the door, and that's when he does it. He stops me just outside, one hand on the doorframe, not touching me, and he says it low enough that it's only mine. Don't work this alone. It isn't an order. It's something worse. It's the voice of someone who's actually worried. I walk to my truck. When I get home, there is a folded piece of paper on the welcome mat. No envelope, no name. I open it. The handwriting is careful and deliberate. Someone who didn't want to be recognized by their hand. A photograph is not the only proof. But you will need more than courage. I look up at the empty road. Then at the neighboring property. The barn is dark. But the front gate is open. Chapter 3. The Man from the Next Farm. I go in the morning when I can tell myself it's just a neighborly call. I put on the good boots. The ones without mud. I tell myself that means nothing. The Callaway property is 3 minutes by foot through the east fence line, along a path that's been there since before either of the farms had names. The gate is iron, old, and it swings open smooth, which means someone's been oiling the hinges. The yard is something, not the ruin I expected. The fencing is new, taut wire strung between posts that went into the ground recently. A garden plot runs along the south side of the house, turned earth, things growing already. 2 horses in the near pasture, dark coats, quiet. The whole place has the feel of someone who left and then came back and decided this time they meant it. I stop in the middle of the yard. Looking for something. The voice comes from the barn. Low, unhurried. He steps out into the light, and I understand immediately why the town talks about him. He's tall, broad through the shoulders. He wears a denim shirt with the sleeves rolled up despite the morning cool, and a jacket of dark leather that looks old enough to have a history. His hair is dark, thick, and his beard is full. His skin has the look of a man who works outside, tanned, but underneath that there is a pallor that the sun hasn't touched. His mouth is a striking red against that pale undertone. His eyes are the thing that stays with you. Deep set, dark, the color of something I don't have a word for yet. Luke Calloway, he says. He doesn't extend his hand. Harper Sloan, my mother's property is east. I know. He watches me with a patience that is either very calm or very ancient, and I can't tell yet which one. I saw a light in your barn, I say. I was working late. Town says this place has been empty for years. Town says a lot of things. He isn't unfriendly. He's just not performing friendliness, and I find that more interesting than most conversations I've had in the last 3 years. You knew the property before I came back to it, he says. Your father walked the east fence line every Sunday morning. I saw him. Something cold runs through me, but soft. Not alarm. Something more like grief hitting a new corner. You knew him. Some. He pauses. He talked about you. I don't ask what he said. I find I can't. We stand there in the morning quiet for a moment. The horses move in the pasture. One of them looks over, curious. You're here for more than introducing yourself, he says. It isn't a question. Someone left a note on my door. Said the photo I found isn't the only proof. I watch his face. Would you know anything about that? He doesn't look away. Doesn't shift. Walk with me, he says. We walk the fence line. He moves slower than his size suggests, deliberate, like he's choosing each step. He doesn't say anything for a while, and I let the silence sit because it doesn't feel empty. The night Harlan Voss made his move on the Sloan property, Luke says finally, there was a meeting. Small room. 3 men and a lawyer. I wasn't in the room. He pauses. But I was close enough to the wall to hear most of it. I stop walking. He keeps going a pace, then turns. Why didn't you say anything to anyone? Who would have believed me? It isn't a question either. I think about Wyatt sitting across a desk from me, saying too fast, too clean. What exactly did you hear? He tells me. Not everything, not yet, but enough. The shape of it. The deliberate fraud. The name of the man who made the paperwork disappear. By the time we stop by the east gate, the morning has turned warm, and I've stopped pretending I came here just to say hello. Why tell me now, I ask. He looks at me for a long moment. His eyes do a thing they've been doing this whole conversation, staying on my face just a beat longer than is comfortable. Because your father asked me to, he says quietly. If anyone ever came back asking. I reach out to shake his hand. Habit, courtesy. The cold of his hand is immediate and total. Not chill, cold. The kind that has nothing to do with weather. I don't pull back. I meet his eyes. He waits. Thank you, Luke, I say. He nods once. On the drive into town, I stop at the top of the hill and open my laptop, and I search the county records. Harlan Voss's land acquisitions, 2009 to 2016. The name of the lawyer who handled the paperwork for all of them. It takes me 4 minutes to find it. His office is still in Wildflower County. Chapter 4. The X and What He Carries. I'm in the third aisle of Brewer's Market, reading the back of a can of black beans and thinking about none of it, when I hear him. Not even his voice. Just the sound of him moving, the particular rhythm of his walk. 7 years and I still know it. I put the can down. I turn around. Cole Archer is standing at the end of the aisle, looking at me like he's been rehearsing this moment, and is now discovering that rehearsal was not enough. He looks good. Annoyingly, deliberately good. Black hair neat, white shirt, dark blazer. There is a watch on his wrist that I've never seen before, and his jaw is sharper than I remember, like the years carved something into it. Harper. Cole. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. You knew I was here, I say. Not a question. I drove down when I heard. He says it directly, no apology for the directness. From Dallas? From wherever I needed to be. There is a whole conversation trying to happen under this one, and I don't have the energy to let it surface. Not here, not in the bean aisle. I take out my phone. Pull up the photo. I hand it to him without preamble. He takes it. He watches it. I watch him watch it. His face does something I didn't expect. He goes still the same way Wyatt went still, but the quality of it is different. This is recognition mixed with something older. Shame, maybe, or the particular horror of understanding something too late. That's my father's hand, I say. I know. That's Harlan Voss. I know. And that's you. He looks up. Harper. Don't manage me. He closes his mouth. His jaw tightens. Your father called me, he says carefully. He asked me to come to a meeting. He said it was about a land negotiation, that he needed someone there as a witness, someone outside the county. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know who Voss was. Not then. You didn't ask. I was 26 and your father asked me a favor and I said yes. I look at him for a long time. The maddening thing about Cole is that he has always been capable of telling the truth in a way that sounds exactly like a lie, and also of telling a lie in a way that sounds like the bravest honesty. I have never fully solved which is which, and it has cost me considerably. On the back, I say, my father's handwriting. He was there. I saw. Why would he write that? Cole is quiet for a moment. I think he was keeping track of everyone who was present. Everyone who might someday be called to account. He hands the phone back. Including me. Before I can respond, I hear the door at the front of the market, and I turn on instinct, and Wyatt is walking in, off-duty jeans and a flannel shirt, and he sees us in 2 seconds flat. He doesn't change expression. He nods at me. He nods at Cole. He picks up a basket. He goes to the produce section, very calmly, like he has all the interest in the world in tomatoes. Cole watches him. Old friend of yours? Cole says. Sheriff. I know who he is. I pick up my basket. I have to go. Harper. His voice drops. I have a box. Your father left it with me before he died. Documents. Sealed. He told me not to open it. I never did. I stop. I don't know what's in it, Cole says. I swear I don't, but if your father sealed it, whatever's inside is something he wanted preserved. I turn around slowly. Cole looks back at me with something on his face that is not performance. It is not the gesture and redemption version of Cole Archer that I have spent years steeling myself against. He looks tired. He looks honest. He looks like a man who found out something about himself too late, and is still working out who he is on the other side of it. I'll leave it on your porch, he says. No conditions. I look at him long enough to let him know I'm measuring this. Then I walk to the register. When I get home, my mother is sitting at the kitchen table with her hands folded, and she looks up at me with the expression I have been afraid of finding since I was 17 years old. You found the photograph, she says. Her voice is not a question, it is relief. Chapter 5. What Mother Kept. I put the kettle on. That's the only thing I know to do. I put the kettle on and I sit across from her at the table and I wait, because she has been carrying this for years, and she deserves to arrive at the words in her own time. I've known, she says, since about 8 months after your father died. 8 months? She's been alone with this for 3 years. How did you find out? A letter. He left it with the attorney's office to be released at 6 months. It arrived in my mailbox on a Tuesday. She smooths the tablecloth with one hand. I didn't know what to do with it. I don't say anything. Your father made a mistake early. Not a moral one. A financial one. He extended a line of credit in a bad year, and when the drought hit the following spring, the note came due and we couldn't cover it. She looks at me steadily. Harlan Voss bought that note from the bank. That part was legal. What wasn't legal was the clause. The clause. There was a provision buried in the repayment terms. One that made it technically impossible to cure the default. The language looked standard. It wasn't. Someone altered the contract. After your father signed the original. She nods. He found out when he hired a second lawyer to review the documents. The original had been switched. What existed in the records was a version your father had never seen and never agreed to. I think about the name I found that morning in the county records. The lawyer who handled all of Harlan Voss's land acquisitions for a decade. Darren Lyle, I say. My mother's expression shifts. You've been moving fast. Who is he to Voss? He was the associate in the firm your father originally used. He passed everything to Voss's people. The document was altered before it was filed. She pauses. Lyle still works in Wildflower County. He's Voss's primary counsel now. The kettle starts to whistle. I get up and pour 2 cups and bring them back to the table and sit down again. Why didn't you go to the sheriff? Because the sheriff at the time was 2 years from retiring, and 3 years from the grave, and he had taken money from Voss in the 80s that everyone in town knew about, and no one in town talked about. She wraps her hands around her cup. And then there was Wyatt. What about Wyatt? Wyatt's father was on the county committee that approved the sale. She meets my eyes. I didn't know if the son was the same kind of man. I sit with that. Is he? I don't know, my mother says honestly. I never gave him the chance. I think about Wyatt in his office, still and careful, saying too clean, too fast. Saying it like the words had been living in him for a long time, waiting for somewhere to go. Mom, he already knows something was wrong. She is quiet. He just didn't have proof, I say. Neither did we. She looks at me across the table. The afternoon light comes through the kitchen window and lands between us. Your father wrote that note on the back of the photograph, she says quietly. Not as an accusation. He wrote it as a record. Cole was an innocent witness, Harper. Your father used him to establish independent presence at that meeting. He believed Cole could be called to testify someday. I breathe. And you put the photograph in the cookbook. In case, she says simply, in case something happened to her. In case someone came looking. In case I came home. My phone buzzes on the table. Unknown number. I read the message. Your mother is in danger as long as you keep digging. Consider this a courtesy. The room gets very still. I delete the message. I look up at my mother, who is watching me with clear eyes, not alarmed, the eyes of a woman who has already done her worrying. I'm not stopping, I tell her. I know, she says. I go to the window and look at the county road. Wyatt's white truck is parked 50 yards down, engine off. He's not getting out. He's not leaving either. He stayed. Chapter 6. Bluebonnet Fields and Dangerous Confessions. He knocks at 7 in the morning, and he has 2 cups of gas station coffee and absolutely no pretense about it. I thought I might show you the eastern roads, Wyatt says. It's been a while. Things have changed. Have they? Some things. He is wearing jeans and a flannel that fits him very well, and he is not wearing his badge, which tells me this is not official, which tells me something else entirely. I take the coffee. We drive the eastern county roads with the windows down and the bluebonnets running thick on both sides, and it is painfully beautiful in the way of things that have nothing to do with your situation, and every sympathy for it anyway. He drives the way he talks. Unhurried. My father was on that committee, he says, about 10 minutes out of town. I know. I found out 2 years after he died, going through his papers. He keeps his eyes on the road. He wasn't in on the fraud, I believe that. But he wasn't asking enough questions either, and that distinction matters less the older I get. How long have you been waiting for someone to bring you something solid? He is quiet for a moment. Since about the first year I had the badge, he says. We pull over at the top of Archer Hill, which has the view that every postcard photographer in the state eventually drives out to use. You can see the county spread below, the fields and the river cut and the church steeple in town, and the Voss estate on the North Ridge, sitting up there like it owns the view. It does own the view. That's the problem. Darren Lyle, I say. I've had my eye on him for 4 years. You have nothing on him. I have suspicion and a pattern, he says. Which is not nothing, but it isn't what I need. I tell him about the box Cole has. The documents. The sealed envelope from my father. Wyatt listens without interrupting, which is a quality I have decided I find deeply attractive and am choosing not to examine right now. If there's a copy of the original contract in that box, he says carefully, alongside the filed version with Lyle's alterations, that is a prosecutable discrepancy. How prosecutable? Enough. We are both looking at the valley below, not at each other, which is the only way this conversation works right now. Your father was building a case, Wyatt says. He just ran out of time. The sun is getting high and warm, and there is a meadowlark somewhere doing its whole routine, and the entire landscape is aggressively romantic in a way that I would find funny if my chest weren't doing what it's doing. I turn and look at him. He turns a half-second later. Like he knew I was about to. The air does that complicated thing again. He lifts his hand and touches my face. Just one moment, his thumb at my cheekbone. Barely anything. Long enough to be unmistakable. His radio crackles. Dispatch. He pulls his hand back. He answers it. I look at the bluebonnets. When he drops me back at the house, he cuts the engine. Serena filed a complaint this morning, he says. Officially, she said you're making accusations about her family without basis. What are you going to do about it? Nothing, he says calmly. Because she's wrong on both counts. The accusations have basis. And they're not accusations. He looks at me. They're a preliminary investigation. I open the truck door. Wyatt. Yeah. Why was that photo on your desk turned down? He holds my gaze. It was a photograph of you, he says. From the last time you were here. I didn't know if keeping it visible was the right kind of man to be. I get out of the truck. I walk to the porch. Cole's box is there, on the mat. Brown cardboard, sealed with tape and time. A note on top in his handwriting. I never opened it. I never will unless you ask me to. The choice is yours. It always should have been. Inside the box, visible through the loose flap, is a manila envelope with my name on it in my father's hand. For Harper. Open when you're ready to finish it. I pick it up. I'm ready. Chapter 7. What the Immortal Knows About Loss. I drive to Luke's in the dark. It's past 10. The envelope is on the passenger seat, and I have not opened it yet, and I don't know why I'm going to him instead of sitting at my kitchen table doing it alone, except that I do know, and the knowing makes me drive faster. There is a light on in the farmhouse. He opens the door before I knock. I thought you might come, he says. He steps back to let me in. The inside of the house is something I wasn't prepared for. Clean, sparse, everything in its place. But there are books everywhere. Shelves floor to ceiling, and maps framed on the walls. Old ones. Older than any map should be in a house this size. There is a wood stove burning low, and the whole room smells like pine and something older that I don't have a name for. We sit on the front porch instead. My father's envelope, I say, holding it. He nods. I keep not opening it. You'll open it when it's time. Luke. I look at him. The night is around us, wide and quiet, and he's watching me with those eyes that hold an entire patience, that I'm only beginning to understand is not stillness but something earned. How long have you been here? On this property? 8 years? In Texas? He is quiet for a moment. A long time, he says. You were cold, I say. When we shook hands, too cold. He doesn't look away. I know. Are you going to tell me? I think you already know. I think I do. I've been circling it since the first morning, fitting the pieces together the way you do when you don't want to be right, but your instincts keep insisting. My father knew, I say. Your father was one of the few people in my life who didn't change when he found out. Luke's voice stays even, but there is a weight in it. He came to my gate one Sunday morning and said he'd noticed I didn't age the way most people do, and asked if I needed anything. Just like that. I look at him for a long moment. He was always like that, I say quietly. Luke was there for the meeting. He tells me all of it now, the names, the conversation, the specific language Lyle used to discuss the buried clause. the phrase Voss used when he described how long it would take the Sloans to understand what had happened to them. I listen. I make sure I remember every word. You would testify to this, I say. I would testify to this. It will raise questions. About you. I know. Luke, people in small towns. Your father asked me to, if someone came looking. He turns to look at me directly, and the fire inside catches his eyes in a way that is extraordinary and a little frightening and entirely honest. He told me there was a chance you would come back someday. He said to tell you that the case was worth whatever it cost. I have to look away. I look at the valley, the dark fields, the road that runs east to my mother's house. You've been alone a long time, I say. Yes. Does that... I stop. Start again. Is it better or worse having time? He is quiet for so long that I almost take it back. It was unbearable when I lost my wife, he says. For a long time, the length of it was a punishment. Watching everyone I knew leave, getting used to leaving myself. He stops. And now? Now, he says, and his voice changes in a way that makes me hold very still. I am sitting on this porch with you, and it occurs to me that I haven't thought about leaving in weeks. That's the first time in longer than I can explain. The night holds us both. I open the envelope. Inside, my father's handwriting fills 4 pages. The original contract, a copy, annotated in his margins. The filed version, printed from the county records. And a letter to the county judge, written and never sent, dated 3 weeks before his death, asking for an investigation. Everything Wyatt needs. Everything we need. At the bottom of the envelope, a handwritten note. 1 line. For my girl, I'm sorry it took this long. You were always the brave one. I fold it carefully. When I look up, Luke is watching me with an expression I haven't seen from him before. Open, real. Come back, he says quietly. Not asking me to stay, not assuming. Just the barest truth of what he wants. I will, I tell him. When I pull into my driveway, the front light is on, and through the window, I can see my mother's silhouette at the table. And parked at the end of the drive, engine off, headlights dark, is a car I don't recognize. Inside, through the glass of the kitchen window, I see him. Harlan Voss. Sitting at my mother's table like he owns the air inside it. Smiling. Chapter 8. The Elegance of Revenge. I take 3 seconds on the porch. That's all I give myself. 3 seconds to feel everything that is happening in my chest, and make peace with the fact that peace is not an option tonight. Then I open the door. Harlan Voss is 67 years old, and built like a man who decided decades ago that the world should rearrange itself around his comfort. Silver hair, good suit, the kind of tan that comes from leisure rather than labor. He has a glass of water in front of him that he poured himself from our faucet, which is the detail that makes my jaw tighten. My mother is sitting across from him with her hands flat on the table, perfectly still. She meets my eyes when I come in. She's all right. Harper, Voss says, like we're old friends. Sit down. I'll stand. He smiles. I heard you found some old papers of your father's. I just wanted to make sure you understood the context. What context would that be? Your father owed a debt, he says. I acquired that debt legitimately. The property transfer was fully documented and approved. With a contract he never signed. He doesn't blink. I'm sorry? You heard me. He leans back. He sets the glass down. I want to offer you something, he says. A settlement. Quiet, private, handled by lawyers. A fair amount of money. Enough to care for your mother very comfortably for the rest of her life. In exchange for whatever papers you believe you have? He says it gently. The way men like him always say the ugly things. No, I say. He looks at me the way powerful men look at women who say no. Recalculating. Patient. You should think about it carefully, he says. Old papers have a way of being misinterpreted. And accusations from someone who hasn't lived here in years. Get out of my house. He stands. He straightens his jacket. He looks at me one last time, and there's nothing warm in it now. Things have a way of getting complicated, he says. I'd hate for that to happen to your family. He leaves. I wait until his car is out of the driveway and then I call Wyatt. He answers on the second ring. I tell him everything. The original contract. The filed version. The annotations. The letter to the judge. My father's handwriting, precise and dated. Lyle's role. Boss in my kitchen. The threat. There is a silence on the line. Harper, that documentation. I know. I'm coming over. I know that too. He is there in 8 minutes, which means he was already on the road before I called. He goes through every page at the kitchen table while my mother makes fresh coffee, and I sit across from him watching him read. His expression doesn't change much, but his jaw does. This is enough, he says finally. Cole arrives at 9 with no forewarning. Just a knock, just the fact of him in the doorway. I heard Voss was here, he says. I don't ask how. In Wildflower County, news travels faster than trucks. He comes in. He reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket and lays a small digital recorder on the table. Wyatt looks at it, looks at Cole. This is 6 years old, Cole says. I was leaving a firm in San Antonio. I worked a case there briefly that involved land law in multiple counties. I found a file with the Sloan name in it, and I thought it was odd, and I started recording a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. He doesn't look at me. He looks at the table. Voss, Lyle. The specific language they used about the clause. How long they expected it would take your family to figure out what had been done. The kitchen is very quiet. I kept it, Cole says. I didn't know why. I just knew your father had asked me to hold on to anything with your family's name in it. Wyatt looks at me. I look at the recorder. Is it clear? Wyatt asks. Clear enough, Cole says. Wyatt takes both the envelope and the recorder. He makes calls from the driveway. One to the DA, one to the county judge's office. One I don't hear. Darren Lyle is stopped at the county line at 11:45, trying to drive a rental car to San Antonio with a suitcase and no clear explanation. I find out afterward. I'm on the porch by then, the night cool around me, the stars doing their indifferent Texas thing above all of this. I cry, I don't announce it. I just sit on the top step and let my shoulders go, and let the thing happen that has been building since the moment a photograph fell out of a cookbook. I hear the screen door. Wyatt sits down next to me. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't put his arm around me. He just puts his hand on the porch step, 2 inches from mine, and stays. After a while he says, Your father built that case alone, over years. Yeah. You finished it in a week. I look at him. He raised a good daughter, Wyatt says. I have to look away. Cole leaves before midnight. He says goodnight to my mother. He comes to the porch and looks at me. I know I can't fix what I didn't do, he says. You couldn't have known, not then. I should have asked more questions. Cole. He waits. You held on to a recorder for 6 years and drove 3 hours because a woman's family needed it, I say. That's not nothing. He nods. He goes to his car. I watch him go with something that is not the grief I expected. It's cleaner. It's what remains after you finally set a thing down and realized you were the one holding it all along. Wyatt is still next to me when the taillights disappear. The photo on your desk, I say. Still there, he says. Face up now? He turns his head. Face up, he says, if you're okay with that. I lean back against the porch post and look at the stars. I'm okay with that. Chapter 9. Roots and What Stays. 6 weeks later, the bluebonnets are at their absolute peak. That's the thing about the hill country spring. It doesn't build to it slowly. One morning you wake up and the whole world has gone blue-violet, and you understand why people drive hours just to stand in a field and breathe. Mom is up before me. I find her in the kitchen making biscuits from memory. No recipe, hands working the dough like the motion lives in her body, and always will. She looks up when I come in, and she looks like someone who has put down a very heavy thing. Sleep okay? She asks. Better than I have in years. The formal investigation opened 2 weeks ago. Harlan Voss's attorneys are working hard, and his name is in the county paper, and he is no longer attending events where people applaud. Darren Lyle cooperated with the prosecutors in exchange for a reduced charge, which Wyatt warned me about and I made my peace with, because Lyle on the stand is more valuable than Lyle protecting himself. The land won't come back. Wyatt told me that early and honestly. The sale, even a fraudulent one, creates complications that take years to untangle. Maybe it never fully untangles. But the Sloan name does. That's not nothing. My father knew the difference. Cole comes by mid-morning. He is in jeans and a simple shirt, no blazer, no watch, and he looks more like himself than he has since he drove into town. Or maybe this is a new version of himself. I'm not sure the distinction matters. He has coffee. We sit on the porch steps. I'm going back to Dallas tomorrow, he says. Okay. I found a therapist, specifically one who works with people who found out things about themselves after the fact. He pauses. Turns out there's a whole subset of that. I look at him. He found out he was a werewolf at 30, 2 years after we ended. He told me last week, sat on this same porch and told me like a man confessing a thing he's been ashamed of, and also has no idea how to frame. I didn't run. I also didn't know exactly what to do with it. Cole, I say, you don't have to. I don't love you the way I did, I say. That's true. But I think I understand now that I never stopped caring about who you were before everything got complicated. That's different from what we had. I think it might actually be better. He is quiet. Yeah, he says finally. I think it might be. He hugs me when he leaves, and it is the hug of two people who are done carrying the wrong version of each other. He drives out the gate and I watch until the truck is gone. I walk to Luke's. He is at the fence line when I get there, mending a post, and he straightens when he sees me coming. I wanted to say something, I tell him. He sets the post driver down. I don't know what this is, I say, and I gesture between us in a way that is not graceful but is honest. I don't know what it could be. I know there are things about your life that are different from mine in ways I haven't begun to figure out yet. That's true, he says, but I keep coming here, and you keep having the light on. He looks at me for a long moment. His eyes do the thing they do, staying past comfortable, seeing something. I've loved people, he says quietly. And I've lost them, every one of them, and there was a point where I decided it wasn't worth it anymore. He pauses. I'd like to revisit that decision. I step closer. Close enough that the cold of him is its own kind of warmth, the way anything that is wholly itself becomes something to lean toward rather than away. Okay, I say. Okay, he says back. And he almost smiles. I walk into town in the afternoon. I know where Wyatt will be. He is on the steps of the county office, end of shift, hat in his hands, looking at the street the way people look at things they've been keeping. He sees me coming from a block away. He doesn't move. He waits. I stop in front of him. I don't know how to do this right, I say. He stands up. Neither do I, he says. But I'm not going anywhere. The afternoon light is the particular gold that the hill country gets when the day is deciding to end. The kind of light that lands on the world like it means it. Walk with me? He says. And I do. I drive home the long way, the road that goes past the hill where the bluebonnets run all the way to the tree line. I stop there and get out. The view is everything. The county spread below, the church and the river and the Voss estate up north, which is a little smaller looking than it was 6 weeks ago. Not because anything changed in it. Because something changed in me. Luke's farm is east, the light just coming on in the window as the sun goes down. Wyatt's truck is turning onto my mother's road. I stand here in the blue violet and the late gold, and I am not waiting for anything. I'm already here. I'm staying.